Good afternoon and welcome to another in the series of Saturday Sports Special, where we get to speak to the movers and shakers of sports. And this afternoon, our special guest will be Mr. Peter Blair, a veteran sports administrator from the Parish of St Andrew. Mr. Blair has given more than 40 years of service to sports and culture, not only for the big parish St Andrew, but also to Grenada. Mr. Blair will be joining us momentarily. He was actually on just a few moments ago. He's trying to just finalize some issues there. But just to let you know that coming up on Thursday, we'll be speaking to a former Grenada and West Indies leg spinning all-rounder, Camillus Alexander. The name Camillus Alexander would have been bantered around for quite a while. We have heard about the likes of Camillus and a number of other youth players. And Camillus Alexander will be with us on Thursday. And on next Saturday, hopefully, we'll have the former coordinator of sports, Mr. Cecil Greenwich, who's expected to join us on the Saturday Sports Special. But for today, we'll be dealing with Mr. Peter Blair. Once we get him back on, we should have him to speak to us about his sojourn in sports and culture, sports in particular, over 40 years of service to not just St. Andrews. We could recall Mr. Peter Blair with the St. Andrews Football League. He's also involved in the National Lottery Authority. So a number of things he has been involved in. As I say, welcome to Mr. Peter Blair. Good afternoon to you, Mr. Blair.
Yeah, good afternoon, Bascom, and good afternoon to all of these broadcasts held presently.
Yeah, right. And I was saying that over 40 years of service to sports and culture, a little piece of politics, farming, just about everything Peter Blair has been involved in. Let's start off, Peter. How have you been coping with the pandemic as it is now?
Well, actually, there have been challenges, but I think I've been coping. I mean, very good in any event, So I've been coping with it.
Okay. Well, first off, let me tell you that there are at least two persons who told me to convey their regards to you. They haven't seen you in over 30 years. That's Mr. Randy Glean. He said he haven't seen you in over 30 years. In fact, he said 33 years.
Randy Glean from St. John's. I remember Randy.
Yes. Randy Glean. Right. Yeah. But let's talk about how were you able, Mr. Blair, to get involved in sports at such an early age? In fact, in sports administration, I should say, at such an early age. You said at the age of 22.
Yeah. Well, it actually started in school. Going to school at the RC Boys School in Grenville in those days, in the 70s, late 60s, early 70s, is that we normally used to be running inter-house sports and football, etc. in the school. And at most times I was at the forefront in organizing those sports there. Again, some of it came from scouting, the whole aspect of, scouting, voluntary work, etc., etc. So it just rolled on. That itself just rolled on when I came up from school and I went out, so that we got into the football. I decided to go into football administration.
So you actually started in football administration.
Yeah, actually started in football administration, but I've been saying prior to that, I got most of my experience being involved in the scout movement. As a matter of fact, I went as far as to be a scout commissioner. But the scouting itself was one that helped me make me what am I today in any event, I must say. And in the aspect of football, for instance, I remember in 1976, one of the St Andrews parliamentarian, he was Alexis, said to me, Blair, nothing happened in Grenville. Why you all run a football competition there? And that is exactly how we started running a football competition in 1976 in Grenville. and then Claudius George were doing a competition in Progress Park. And in 1979, we merged both competitions. Then we reorganized the St Andrews Football League. So it started in 76, where we and a guy, myself and a guy, Ogilvy guy from La Ligue and myself, we were running that tournament in Grenville. And that is exactly where we started it, with the Grenville competition and the Progress Park competition.
But how challenging it was during those days to get involved at the organizational aspect of sports in Grenada, and especially in St Andrews?
Well, the thing about it is that because I was involved in scouting, and I think that is where I get all the vibes from, to move on from scouting to the bigger thing, because scouting is actually used for preparing people for a lifetime, for lifetime. And I could testify that scouting itself is one that helped me to be where I end up at the end of the day, So there were challenges, yes, but you cope. There was support. I remember in the early days, the then minister, Rice and John, was very instrumental in assisting us in what we were doing in St Andrews. But there were challenges. At that time, people was very reluctant to actually come on board. But we survived from that time. We moved from one point to another point, So I cannot find exactly from there to. But the question of the formation of the reorganizing of the St Andrews Football League. That itself was reorganized in 1979. Prior to 1979, the league was one of the better organized league in the country in any event. And it entertained people like Kingston Forrester, another guy, Evelyn Frederick, also Leonard Andrew, who incidentally was my school principal. Now he used to be one of our scout leaders also. He was also instrumental in assisting prior to the organization of the St Andrews Football League. But I think at one time, most of the guys either traveled or whatsoever, and they gave up. And it was just a big, and then we just say, in 1970, I said, let's reorganize the St Andrews Football League. And it was there we started, bringing clubs together and reorganizing ourselves, And before the Football League came, the St Andrews football team, and you know that we were able to run the better competitions in the country. And even at present day, I think we are still running one of the better competitions in the country. I mean, all there are challenges, but we have run competition from 1979 up until now, except this year because of COVID situation, we have not run a competition this year. However, I've been pressed by the community, by the clubs in St Andrews, that we should have a competition, whether it's a knockout or whatsoever. But again, we'll have to get permission from the COVID committee to run a competition. We are still hoping that we could probably run a knockout competition before the end of this year. Because our seasons go from 2020 to 2021. So even though we start, let's say January, we're still in line for the 2020-21 competition.
Was there a challenge, Mr. Blair, to get the youngsters at the time involved? I mean, you said you were able to have these competitions on a yearly basis, but was it as a challenge to get these youngsters involved in sports during your time, during your tenure there?
No, I think actually people are always interested in playing sports, but they are not actually interested in administration. So there always been the problem of getting referees and etc. But as far as people playing, that hasn't been a problem. Actually, want to play. That's right. People want to play. They don't want to take on responsibility. They don't want to be part of it. All they want to come, just play for sports.
Okay. We just had a little technical problem there, but I hope you can iron that out. But going forward, Mr. Blair, how would you say well, let's look at the St Andrews Football League. We come to sports in general, because you have been involved in quite a bit. But the St Andrews Football League has evolved over the years, going through all these challenges as you have mentioned. Would you say that it has achieved what it set out to achieve, or you believe that it can probably achieve a little more?
Well, I will actually say that the St Andrews Football League has actually been the pillar for development of football in the parish. Because Paradise right now, that's Paradise Football Club International, They are one of the leading clubs in the country right now. But Paradise football team itself was an outshoot of St Andrews Football League. By saying that, at one time, the bulk, nearly all the players in St Andrews were playing in St Andrews Football League. But there came a time when we had produced so many players so that people could not actually get into that St Andrews team which was playing in the GFA. So they decided it was fit to go out there and form a team to play in the GFA by exposing people at that level. Because I must also say too, that when it was reorganized in 1979, there were no teams playing in the GFA competition. So we selected our representative St Andrews team from the St Andrews competition, which took part in the GFA. And the rest is history. SAFL was supposed to be reckoned in those days. Things have changed since then. I remember, if you remember the days of PRA and etc., etc., SAFL was one of the leading teams in any event. That's 1790 thereabout. And we have held our own over the years. Within recent time, the St Andrews team itself is not as vibrant as it used to be in the past. But within the past 2 years, we have started a rebuilding process. We are actually taking part in the youth competition. Last year, we took part in the under-19 competition, in the 15 competition. And this year, we are prepared to do the same. So we are in a rebuilding process. What the problem had to do with the St Andrews team to the SFL team is that once we are producing players, but as soon as they reach a certain level, is that other teams, some of them probably want to go and play for Parish, etc., etc. And not only that too, there are probably two other Premier League, two other GFA teams in St Andrews. There is SAB. There is also 5 Stars.
5 Stars, yeah.
Yeah. But those both 5 Stars is a second division, a conference team, just like also Moncton. And those and all those teams are village team. And what actually happened is that we get the exposure to St Andrews football competition, and they thought it's better to move out, so they moved away from the St Andrews football competition, and they were the team that were playing in the St Andrews competition. They no prefer to go and play in the GFA competition. As a matter of fact, most of them are playing in the GFA competition and in the St Andrews competition. But those teams play as a unit. But the St Andrews football team, the SFL team that take part in the GFA, it still going to comprise representatives from their teams. And then they come from different areas. But whilst, for instance, the Parish, the Moncton, and etc., Sab, etc., they come from one particular village. So they have a whole village support them. They come to the St Andrews team, the SFL team itself, it's different. It's section support. I mean, people coming from Unique, Tiboli, Byland, Berebo, they mix St Andrews, So that is those two are challenges itself, But we have coping, and we continue to cope over the years.
Okay. So let's look at St Andrews and how they have been able to produce so many national players over the period of time. St Andrews in particular, and national players representing Grenada, okay, in football over the years. And I guess as much that will be at the expense of the St Andrews Football League, you will say.
Well, St Andrews Football League have been plays the rule, but one must give credence to Assam School of Modern Soccer. That's Askar Chesandal, who runs a grassroots program in Progress Park, and the players are actually exposed there at an early age, and the bulk of the players from that Assam School of Soccer goes to play for Paradise at a very early age. And so I must say that too has been that grassroots program that has been the breeding ground for most of the players that have been produced in St Andrews within recent time. And all of them plays in the St Andrews competition, but the bulk of the players that plays for the national team right now, in one way or the other, they have been associated with the Assam School of Soccer and St Andrews Football League. One of our players who play for the national team, they play in the St Andrews Football League presently. So the St Andrews Football League is actually responsible for pushing players forward. And like I said, the old age, the grassroots program that is run by Ascandal in Progress Park helped to before the situation. So he too must get credit for winning up in St Andrews presently.
I remember over the years, one of the problems affecting football in the parish had to do with availability of facilities, because you were competing at the time with cricket, and lots of cricket being played in the parish, especially on the weekends. Was that really a factor that was affecting the whole growth and development of football in the parish? Availability of facilities for football?
Well, there have been in the past, there have been challenges with for instance, in the middle of the football season, grounds are not available because sometimes they are playing cricket, for instance, and sometimes it's understandable if you're preparing for with analyzed tournaments or some instance tournaments, you prepare that the grounds will not be available. Progress Park in particular, but by and large, Grenville had always been available for football. But Progress Park itself have its challenges. I remember last year there was one situation we was told that we cannot play football in Progress Park. And we want to know why. There are no cricket. People are practicing football, and they said this is an football league with no permission to play. However, in any event, we was able to get around that in any event. When we spoke to the ministry, and it was resolved, right? But at some time, what you're doing voluntary work, and at some time there are people who are doing the professional work or doing paid work, and sometimes they actually frustrate people who do voluntary work. I mean, I have had other experiences over the years, you know. But I must compliment, for instance, Claudius George, who has been a groundsman, and he has been supportive. One might say that Claudius might be probably not cooperative, but he's been cooperating with us. I mean, and we have been getting full cooperation from the Ministry of Sports over the years. I mean, I must admit that I had worked with all the sports ministers from Rice and John right down to the current sports minister, Mr. Cox. And very soon I'll be working with the new sports minister, who is a product of the parish, So
well, I'm glad you said that, because she did indicated that, and I can read what she said here, that Mr. Blair has been around for quite some time and has contributed quite a lot to sports and culture as well. We worked closely over the years, and he could be referred to as she says, an old veteran. So I guess as much the terms of working with the new sports minister is nothing new for you. And obviously, I'm hoping that some of your concerns can be raised with the new sports minister, because I'm for one, I believe, even though I'm not from St Andrews, I always believe that sports is very important to the parish of St Andrews, well, just to Grenada, but I just have it that because of the contribution St Andrews have made over the years for sports, not just football, cricket, I mean, just name it. I still believe that the parish has been shortchanged to an extent, and I still think that they should get their dues when it comes to its fair share of development regarding sports. And I hope something that the new sports minister can look into to ensure that the young people in the parish of St Andrew can get much more. And use sports as a vehicle, especially at the village and community level. A lot of times we get carried away with the national issues and things like that. So, but I always believe that the village and community levels are very important and unique for our development of sports. And I want to thank you, Mr. Blair, for the services you have given over the years, because I always said that when I got involved in sports back in the 80s, Peter Blair was already an established name, was a name, if I have to talk sports in St Andrews, there were two persons I had to contact. It's either Peter Blair or Claudius George. And look, Mr. Blair, as you said, 44 years later, when you first got involved in sports administration, you're still around. Let's move on to your involvement, as you said, not just in sports, but also in culture. And culture in the extent that you have been part of the St. Andrews Development Organization, I think, is SADO.
Yeah, that's right. But Just before we go there, I mean, let me just compliment the new Minister of Sports. I've worked in the past very closely with the Minister of Sports. We were associated with the St Andrews Carnival Committee for a number of years. Even prior to before she became minister, she was the one handling the Queen Show aspect of Carnival in St Andrews, and I had a close working relationship with her there and then. So I look forward now to be working even closer with her in my few years around in sports, left in sports, as the new culture minister. Sorry, as the new youth and culture and sports minister, and actually want to compliment her for the new position. I look forward to working with her. But prior to that, you raised the question of my involvement in the culture of St Andrews. Yes, that's correct. Let me just say that I've been a foundation member of the St Andrews Development Organization, that's the Rainbow City people. And I was involved in the running of the festivals for a number of years. The St Andrews Carnival Committee too, which I've been chairman for a number of years until I actually resigned, I think in 2006, 2007 around, which I decided to call it a day around then. I've been, probably could be said, probably one of the longest serving chairman of carnival committees in St Andrews in any event. That committee itself was a subcommittee of SEDO, and as such, I used to be the main one responsible for the carnival activities under the auspices of SEDO. In the early days, the carnival committee was a subcommittee of SEDO. I don't know exactly what it is right now. As you know, SEDO was supposed to be the umbrella body for a number of activities in St Andrews. I know that they are still on the beat, and I must compliment those who are keeping it afloat. You know, the festival has been a big thing, and within recent time, there's a lot of drawfish in it in any event, but nevertheless, it's still there. And once you actually compliment the people who are around now to keep it alive.
And in addition to that, you also had credits of being involved in getting lotteries in Grenada. What was the involvement?
Yes, that's correct. In 1999, 91, there, about I was I'm appointed the chairman of the Grenada National Lottery Authority. In those days, they were dealing mainly with scratch. And by the time I left, about 2 years later, we had moved from scratch to lotto. And but I know that there are a lot of misconceptions. But being the chairman and the chairman from the parishes and all of them, there was questions that, I mean, you have this boy from the country, and it's chairman of the National Lottery Authority in an event. And as far as it's concerned, we should have somebody from the city who should be chairman. I mean, a lot came out of that. One time there was a fiasco, but I say that under my chairmanship, the lottery moved from one point to another. When we went for under my chairmanship, for instance, and I must compliment also Captain Taylor. I'm from St. John's, who was the chairman at the committee, and we have done wonderful. When we took over the lottery in 1991, thereabout, they couldn't get over from the bank. But by the time after about a year, after a year operation, we was able to turn around the business in any event. But by that time, there are those who tend to figure, well, who is Peter Blair to be the chair of the Grenada National Lottery Authority? So we have to change him. And the rest is history. We don't know probably exactly what transpired from there and then. I remember having a discussion with the then Prime Minister, the late Nicholas Brafitt. He says in peace, and he said to us, he said, boy, you have done a good job, but you can understand. Some of your own political colleagues are pressuring him that to sack. We see, I mean, you don't know what. I know he gave us the compliment, but again, like I said, the thing had to do a lot of things with the question of tongue and country, etc. You know.
Wow. And you mentioned the late Sir Nicholas Brafitt, which brings me to the point that you also had a little stint in politics yourself.
That's correct. I'm a foundation member of the National Democratic Congress. When the Congress was formed, I took part in the whole formation, going from parish to parish, village to village. And in 1989, I was able to be a candidate for one of the St Andrews constituencies. But after that, I actually dropped off. Not under pressure, I just decided, well, probably better to stay up for the politics for the time being. I must say, presently, I'm no longer active in politics. But in the early days, I was active involved in NDC, in a foundation to the likes of God Brizan, Francis Alexis, Vincently, etc. The hoax, the first batch. As a matter of fact, I remember when Saniko's Profit was brought to be the political leader of the party. I was at that discussion, and he's from there's his history, came to be prime minister, etc., etc. And it was always the aspect of division in the party at the time. And in most instances, people are just pushing that out there. And even to this day, people are still seeing NDC as a party of division, etc., etc. But like I say, I'm no longer involved in politics, and I actually enjoy the rest of my life. Blood allow me to live in a very nice way in the football aspect, and to extend these days in farming, which we could talk down the line.
Yeah, well, I was about to say, while you're not actively involved in politics, you're actively involved in farming. So if briefly we can talk a little about the farming before we get back into the whole sports. Like your friend, former sports minister Patrick Simmons last week, also an active farmer himself, and also had a dabble in politics, as he says that he's not intrigued on being in the front line of politics, but he still supports his political party. But his day-to-day operation seems to be farming. When I spoke to you earlier this week, you were also on the farm.
Yeah, that's correct. I do some farming and some acres of land in Belleville State. At one time, it was a nutmeg estate, but Ivan itself came and destroyed nutmeg. And since then, they've been trying to put bad things together in an event. What is interesting is that the nutmeg which are planted by Ivan started hearing. So right now, I'm able to sell a nutmeg in. And then there's an interesting thing about it. I remember after Ivan, one guy said to me, "Well, why you don't plant nutmeg?" I said, I am planting nutmeg again, man. And one person asked me, nutmeg I was actually reaping. Who planted it? He said it was for friends. And then he more or less motivated me to go there and plant this nutmeg. And I mean, right now I'm reaping the benefits. Most of it, but what I'm doing farming at the level of traditional farming. I into the nutmeg and cocoa, and while my friend Patrick Simmons he do a lot of cash crops. But I've been in the traditional crops.
Okay,
so I thought
we just messed it up. Let's go on now. Mr. Blair, you spoke about your involvement in administrative duties at the St Andrews level, and most so had to do a lot with football. But you also were part of the Eastern Games, when it was organized some years ago.
Yeah, well, I must say, and I must take credit for the one, who came forward with the idea of pushing Eastern Games, and in those days, in 1976, there, but we got this support from the Ministry of Sports. In those days, I was the president of the St Andrews Development Youth Committee, and the St Andrews Development Committee was responsible for running Eastern Games in the parish. And then he moved from the Youth Development Committee to the Eastern Games Committee down the line until he actually diminished sometime, I think, in the early 80s when it's continue. But I was in the front of the Eastern Games, and also it was a question of the St Andrews Run, which I was actually involved with. The idea of the St Andrews Run was my idea, which I came up with. And I remember listening one time, run Barbados to a newscast, and then they came up with this question of St Andrews Run. And that was an event that took place the week before the Eastern Games. And people look forward in those days for these and games. There are people from around the country taking part. I remember Donald Pay taking part and big athletes at the time coming up with some games and taking part. And again, even at that time, they were getting the support. I remember from the Minister Rice and the Ministry of Sports. We were getting support in those days.
Mm-hmm. But how do you think we can get organized sports back in the parish of St Andrews, apart from the now football and the cricket? Organized sports in St Andrews, and organized in the sense of not teams involvement, but something that can spur on clubs' participation in organized sports. You speak about the track and field, for example, the cricket, the football, whether it's volleyball, organized sports for the parish of St Andrews.
Well, I think one of the problems is that young people right now, they're not really interested in sports. I mean, all they want to do is play. The bulk of people want to play, and not only that. In our days, everything was done voluntary. I mean, the referees were volunteered. I mean, the ex-school, nobody get paid, right? But these days, you have a situation that even referees playing in St Andrews Commission these days, we have to pay them. And so you need to find a way to pay them. And if a referee come and he ain't coming back. But the days when people are just committed for actually working without pay, I mean, those days are actually over, right? Because everybody looking for something even. For instance, I mean, most compliment, Ricky Abbott. I mean, at some time, people tend to figure, well, he probably be out of football in any event. But that man been making a lot of sacrifice for football without any payment, right? But the guy, this is who came, said they want something. They tend to figure that we are getting something. The money you're getting from football, I mean, you're getting the prices, etc., etc. But I just say that to move forward, I think to figure is that the kind of organization of football from a village level, and by that I mean, for instance, you have some of the villages in St Andrews that some of them are football, some of them are cricket. But you need to get people involved from a village level, and then you take it from there, right? But what I realize in most instances is one individual takes on the mantle, whether it's in cricket and in football. But again, with a united effort, I think with the cooperation with the Ministry of Sports, I think it could be done. But I think at some time the right people should be approached to get in. Because in most instances, it seems to be that a lot of people has been sidelined. I mean, one tend to figure what doesn't actually support government that we can do, etc., etc. I mean, I can do that. I mean, my whole life. I mean, as far as I can, doesn't make politics divide what I've been doing. I mean, I have served for the whole duration of the current NNP government. I have a very close relationship with the minister, and I had no problem. No, it doesn't mix politics and sports. It's two different things. And when it comes to that, but I think at some time that even when it comes to getting things at a village level, a lot of people have been left out because they tend to figure, well, that man doesn't support us. And so what happens most time is that the people they get, they cannot drive the way forward. And that's the problem, right? And sometimes as soon as they come, that they want to undermine who is there, right? For instance, I had known guys come to say come to get rid of me. I say, I always tell them come. Yeah, but I do what are they doing any event? So I just say that. It's a ticklish thing, but I think it could be done, but it had to be done from a parish level, and then people they recruiting to be leading it must have the love for the thing, and they should be just there for the money. The money will come down the line in any event, right? But up front, you always see that. But a man come and he want to know how much he getting, how much I get in, etc., etc. So once you take that approach, we ain't going nowhere. So I know the days of volunteerism, are probably far gone, but I think we could only move forward if we go back into these days. But I tend to figure to move forward is that you have to organize from a village level, right? you know, the football teams. We did football team. Each village having the football team, cricket team, athletics team, etc., and you move from that standpoint. And from there, and you'll be able to go to the bigger picture. The question of, I know there's a question of the St Andrews Sports Council, which attempt was made to have it revived due in 2008, 2012 there, but you know the whole thing is that of history. But I remember serving in the early days of during the days of the revolution as a member of the St Andrews Sports Council, and then at one time we was actually responsible for the recreation ground. I mean, most things of Victoria Park, some of the responsibility was put directly into the hands of the Sports Council. I the St Andrews Parish Sports Council. I remember in those days, my former teacher, Leonard Andrew, he's still in PC passed to the Green Beer. He was the chairman of the committee. And himself, I was very active in that too. I remember in those days, when it comes to Victoria Park, we helped to block up holes. I was there and them kind of things. So I'm just saying it's a whole scenario of those forms of things, But like everything else, we need to give it a try and see how we could get impacted, in particular the young people, to come forward in administration. Because that's part of the problem, is that young people are not coming forward in administration. For instance, in the SAFL, I have served with people on the executive. I can remember. Recently, I was in New York, and some guy was speaking to me. He said, we used to be an SAFL executive together, and I couldn't remember because I have served with so many people over the years in football. But the thing about it is that whilst in the past people were prepared to come forward, these days people hardly prepared to come forward. But another thing too is the tongue lashing that people get when you get involved in sports. They want to tell you, exactly how you do this and that, etc., etc. And there are a lot of people who aren't prepared to take them things, And I think that is one of the setbacks even in St Andrews. And even those who saying, well, they could do it when they get a chance to do it. They can do it. For instance, I remember in 1995, I actually walked off of a St Andrews Football League executive council meeting, and a new president was put in place. After 2 years, I remember I was called back, asking to come back around for the position, and I said to them, I ain't interested. A new executive was put into place, and after 1 year, that executive collapsed, and I remember I get back into football in 1998, and I've been there since then as the president of SAFL. So I just saying in light of exactly what been happening. As a matter of fact, at one time, around 95, I thought I had it that day, and it was just for me to forget the football. But some guys came and tell me, you have to come back, And that is probably why I'm back in football, right? And probably what I've been out of football since 1995,
So I had a conversation with someone this week regarding involvement. The conversation was that young people getting involved in sports administration. And there was this concern that, some of the older folks or the veterans do not want to make way. And I was making the case that, yes, you want them to make way, but who are the people showing the interest to be involved? You cannot be on the sideline and just saying, move aside. You have to be involved. And I make the case of yourself and Walter St. John and, quite a few others who I've spoken to over the past few weeks who have been involved in administrating at a very early age. And they basically outlined that they got involved by not just stepping in right away, but being part of a process, sticking around, speaking to folks who are there, attending meetings, et cetera, until you can make your way up, So I'm asking it now as a veteran sports administrator and considering all the challenges now, because at your time and others, there wasn't the internet and the phones and all these other things and television and things that quote unquote are distractions to some. How can you attract the young people into, one, attending meetings? And this might all change with the post-COVID now, where you used to go and sit down and chat. You have virtual meetings now. But how can you attract them to being part of the process, being participant, and getting involved?
Well, I go tell you from a St Andrews standpoint. All these elections, true in the SAFL. It was supposed to be done last year, but only this year because of COVID, it was held. We have brought in a group of young people, who are there. They are a group of young people who are the executive president and the intern, and they're helping to push the progress forward. Right. The thing about it is that people always tend to figure, well, Mr. A and Mr. B there too long, so we just come and trade them. But that it doesn't actually work so. I think people have to work side by side, so that when the young people come in, so that by the time the old people move about, they will have the experience. Because I have a situation, for instance. I will give an example, for instance. When I was playing football in 1995, Hugh Donald at that time was involved with Cablevision. And the executive at the time made an approach to them to sponsor St Andrews football competition. They agreed, but I think was hesitant because they didn't have confidence at the time in the people who was at the executive. However, when the new executive got into place, which I was at him in 1998, we had a meeting with Mr. Donald and others. And then one of the things he said is that he actually they like to want to invest when there is continuity. He has seen St Andrews Football League going a year after year, he had been continuity. And he didn't want to go and put in money in some league, something that you commission this year and you don't commission this year. So you were high in praise for us at the time. I remember he said to us at the time too. In St. David's, there was a guy called Ulala who used to be running this St. David's competition, cricket competition. And once he left, everything fell flat. So at the time he actually contributed, they actually came on board because of the people he was seeing around the table. And he mentioned that in the event. You look at people who have continuity, and he doesn't want to just put some money in something and then after 2 months, after 2 years, they're gone. So we've actually been struggling. Over the years, we've been continuing. But I think the door is open for young people to come into the league, etc. It's democracy. You come to a meeting and election is held, and once elected, who they want to select anything.
I still making the point and asking you the question: how do you think that you can, and from your personal point of view, how you think, if, for example, you want to attract young blood into sports administration in St. Andrew, how do you think? What's the approach you think that should be made in terms of attracting young people, and not just St. Andrews Football League, but sports administration in general in the parish of St. Andrew?
Well, I think you need to bring them on board, and you must get them activities. It must be part of what's been happening. For instance, in the intern executive, we have everybody responsible for something, and at some time, I just sit back and allow them guys to do what they have to do, right? Because I think I had my time. So it's a transition. You want people to get involved of how things are done. So if I move out tomorrow, all the people might have different way of doing things, but the format is the same, right? So I say that when it's a situation, I think people need to be working alongside with people who are there presently once they want to continue working. But there are some people, I know there are some people, for instance, as far as they're concerned, they had enough. People abuse them, they abuse their family, for instance, etc. etc. I could say one thing to you. I remember one of my daughters telling me, up until recently, she was here from New York, and she was saying that she said that in the old days, every day going to some meeting, not carnival, is football, them kind of thing. And she was saying, look, I come here and I still have to go and pay to go and see a football game in the stadium. She was making that kind of point. So she was saying, look, for all the years you serve football, but it actually benefit. But I say, my thing has benefited country. So my thing had to do with the country and not what Peter Blair per se, and in particular, St. Andrews. I always say, as far as the concern, St. Andrews come first and miles. Sometimes people say that and tongue, but that's me. As far as St. Andrews first. But at the same time, as far as I'm concerned, I'm a national person walking to walk through the whole country, but St. Andrews will get the edge in anyway. But again, like I say, it's a question, young people coming on board and working with who are wrong, right? And they should come on board, not with the intention of when they come on board, when they go get out, they're going to be paid, etc. Because a lot of things is voluntarism. It's only these days that money being paid. If you're around the football, the GFA, for instance, big money passes around it. But in in St Andrews, we are actually very fortunate of having that. I can give you one example, for instance. We approached a businessman recently looking for some assistance. And the man was saying that all the money that GFA has is that we shouldn't be coming out and looking for money for St Andrews Football League, right? GFA should be, once they get money from FIFA, is that we should be getting a percentage of it, you know. And that is itself been slow to be coming within recent time. I think we got a little kakada, but it's not, you know, the long time we are becoming, you know. But we have to continue fighting. And we have to fight as a unit for what we want, you know. But like I said, back to the question you asked, I mean, how old people get involved? I think the younger people need to come in and show some appreciation. And some people have been coming, eh? Young people have been coming, but when they come and people cost them off, etc., they say enough, they aren't time, man. You know. And that is part of the problem. They can't take the licks, they can't take the whole thing. I remember when I got involved in football when they formed the league in 1979. We organized it. I remember this guy, Kingston Forrester, another one who was, I mean, I'd done quite a lot for St Andrews in the past. We so rest in peace, he had gone to the Great Division too. And one thing he said to me, he said, Blair, I welcome you to the thing, you know. But when guys start telling how your mother make you and how you use this, your teeth, etc., etc., you give up because all they tell you is that, and the people tell you that they're not prepared to come and do anything. But people have accused me for probably all kind of thing within football, you know. I mean, thieving football money, etc., etc. I remember my daughter told me at one time when she was going to school, they tell her, "Oh, your father thieving all the football money and that kind of thing." So once you are around football and they try to embarrass you by your children and tell them, "Look, that your father thieving money and your father doing this and doing that," and kind of thing. You know? I just say in light of what that transpired over the years. And I don't know these days when somebody come around the football and they want, somebody telling them how the father thieving money, etc., etc. So with all that, people stay around. So there's a lot of licks to get over the years. But I've gone to the licks and I know that people, I don't think that people haven't said there's nothing good to say more with me again. So I don't worry. I just don't want to do. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned about a little kakada, which in itself, colloquial, you're basically talking about a little money, and all that you have gone through, the humiliation and things like that. So, and you have been around the GFA as a director for the past 10 years, Mr. Blair. Yeah, is there any joy, any comfort in sticking around even after going through all of that? Or is it a matter of representation of the parish of St Andrew?
Well, I love representing St Andrews, but I must say, within the last 10 years, I don't know that I'm comfortable to say that I bring anything to St Andrews, for instance. I can give an example, for instance, one time. And let me just say it. From where I is right now is just a stone throw away from the technical center. You know, a technical center was built in Simon, and that itself, after Ivan mashed it up. But I don't think that sometimes there are those who, as far as they're concerned, they don't want the technical center in St Andrews. That's the bottom line. And they do all kind of surveys, etc., etc. The last time they did something, I think, with Simon and Boucherjou, Queen's Park, the last thing I heard they say is that all of them water table. But even with losing the complex, we cannot in St Andrews say right now that there is something to say that you would say from a GFA standpoint that, for instance, there's pictures in Grenville that there's, something to show in St Andrews. We can't show nothing, but so many parishes has developed, and I've been clamoring for that. I've been clamoring for something for St Andrews, right? At one time they suggest to us that they'll get some pictures, etc., etc. But that again is history, So whilst I'd enjoy representing St Andrews, and people tend to figure, well, I ain't doing enough. But you go to a meeting and you talk for the whole night, etc., etc. And like in Parliament, you go talk, and at the end of the day, when it comes to vote, you get voted out. But I think I call in that for St Andrews to get some form of infrastructure from the FIFA funds, etc., etc. Because there's money for that. But we have not been able to, except from the Simon thing, which I say, which we did, the land still belongs to the GFA. And up until now, I think up until recently, a decision was taken that the technical center will move to another area, because recently they were thinking of actually put it there, but I think there are challenges of it. I mean, let me say too. I mean, I from St Andrews, when I was serving as stint at the executive in 2000, and the question came up of putting the technical center in Simon. I mean, I was very kind of concerned because I know there was waterlogged, etc., etc. At the end of the day, I proved to be right. A lot of money was spent there to develop the place, but at the end of the day, it's still country. And I at the time, I was always saying we could find somewhere else to put this the technical center. I mean, apart from Cebu, you know. So I say at the time, and I know no regrets for saying that I thought the area there was not the best place to put it. I put it right at the end of the day in any event, you know.
So where do you suggest that technical center should be located in the parish of St. Andrew?
Where do I suggest?
Yeah, where do you suggest?
Well, at the time, I probably got to probably look at the polls area, the polls playing field, etc. But again, at the time too, you have to do what lands were available, because the lands in Simon was made available by the government to the GFA. That was the GFA. That was the government contribution to the gold project. You know, but again, at this stands, what's quite a lot of money was spent there. But a lot have been done. I remember when I got into the FA in 2010. The FIFA development officer from Trinidad, I think the guy who was advanced involved with the gold project. There was a visit, and I remember in the days of George Magua, we went on the site. And I was saying to get the building on its there, we could have developed it into something where probably you can use it as a community could use it, etc., etc. Something a national team training, they could probably come up, they train, and they training progress, etc., etc. The guy there and then was prepared. The FIFA guy was prepared to fund it. He said it's a good idea, but again, sometimes who the idea come from? People doesn't buy into it, right? Most of them might come with ideas. People tend to figure, well, who is better to come with this idea? You know, you, time is, etc., etc. But I didn't mind, right? What the thing I wanted is I have lived to see most what anything I suggested to be history, right? And you look at, for instance, St. Patrick's. You have the lighting, seating facility, etc. I mean, I'm glad that St. Patrick has that. You know, in St. George's, you had the headquarters, etc. You have a third building, a third school down there. What can we show for golf? For St. Andrews, and another thing, St. Andrews have one of the biggest followers of football in the country, right? It's much easier to move from St. George's to St. Andrews or from St. Patrick because you're in the center and you're already transporting any event, and people tell you that, right? I know some people are probably moving from St. George's to Sotez to look at a game, because that's where the GFA field is located in any event, right? Well, at least the lights, etc., because I think the ground's still in the control of the ministry, you know. But I just say a lot in light is that St. Andrews haven't get off yet. I'm calling him the so must get before shit. I go at excluding from time to time, clamming for something was nice. I mean, I know when the question came up of moving Simon from, giving Simon back to the government, I did against it. I remember during the 20 when Minister Simmons was in office, a decision was taken by the cabinet, those authority, that some lands in Winspark, in state authority, were the Chinese that were living at the time. There was a lack for football there, right? And they agreed one condition, they said give up Simon. And I said to the minister at the time, you supported me give up Simon, right? We said that was the conditions. However, I know that the place was not for football, where it was never taken up by the authorities. And those who tend to figure are incorrect, and let it prove me incorrect, right? So I just want to say those are so many things. And I also have to say too, and all the occasions when the spoon was given back to the government or whosoever, my thing has always been, I've never voted for technical center to move from Simon anywhere else, right? And I want him on that to be clear. When he comes in there, I mean, I already know voted in any event, you know. But I just want to say that.
Yeah,
What
I, I just wanted some clarity on that. So, as it is now, the ruins of the technical center in Simon, what is the decision of that technical center? Is the technical center being moved to another parish? Or, I mean, I'm trying to get it clear because I don't think my audio is a bit clear from coming from you regarding that technical center.
The latest technical center, the building, which I share a lot because the building itself, I mean, need reinforcing, etc., etc. But they are saying it will cost quite a lot to go and go and do work there. So it's easy to move from Sim to another area. You know, I know that they've been looking at other areas they could probably move. I know there is an aspect of looking at some private lands in St. David's, etc., etc. No decisions are taken them as yet. Question of the question of developing technical center it doesn't seem to any cats. What sim could be used for football was, I think, something we can explore on the thing. I know there are talks that the government want to take back Sony, etc., etc. I know confirm that is rumor that already been rumored that government wants him, right? And like I explained to you earlier, and I remember in 2012, when Minister Simmons was the Minister of Sports, he said, I remember his position, yes, I'll call you give all your some place in the state that at the end of the day, you're not release. Right? So that seems to be someone this year. But Simona itself, as a technical center, I don't think we will see it as a technical center. I mean, again, and that thing today, there is an environment in Simona right now. Right there is a place called Bad in the back there. You know, I can't think that it just adjacent to the technical center, and that village developed in this kind of area over the years. Within years, I mean, I don't know putting a technical center the way we bringing young people to young children, etc., might be good at them. So the bottom line, I think, as far as Moon is concerned, that seems to be. I don't think it will be done there from JP standpoint presently.
So that's some money that could have been used elsewhere in the development of football that has probably gone down the drain, as you will say. Don't you think that you have not been very forceful in representing St. Andrews on the GFA?
Well, glad you asked that question. The thing about it is that when you go to this meeting, if you don't have the support of the majority of executive members, I mean, you go nowhere. I mean, for instance, you go to meeting at some time and people vote in blocks and then form the thing. Yes, I've been forceful, but I mean, sometimes people they say let's talk. I mean, you know, right? I mean, I tell you, we was guaranteed that we would get bleachers in Grenville, right? As a matter of fact, I was told at one time to come up with estimates for bleachers for Grenville. But up until now, that was old talk. And I'm afraid to say that there's old talk. St. John's will promise something to and then get nothing. There was a situation one time of lighting, I think in the Monroe field. And then that never came into fruition. But in particular, St. Andrews and St. John's, I think that the two areas that was done for this system. You know, but nothing came out of that. I remember at one time, well, there was an AGM at one time when, for instance, when they did the budget, there was nothing budgeted for progress for Victoria Park and Courtball Peters Park. What you said, the budget the next year. And I remember when we were discussing the budget for the next year, and I raised the question, as far as we were told that the budget will take us in this year. Well, some people that I'm a madman, I'm a crazy man, but I have a good folk, you know. I can actually forget things. He's like them beat up people in anything. And I must say that I'm not a computer child. I mean, I just learning to be there right now, right? I'm learning to get in the system right now. And I think that a long time to do it, to realize as it is right, if I want to exist, then must get in. No. So to say whether I have represented St Andrews properly, I will say that I've been attempting to do it, but in some instances he doesn't get his support. For instance, a lot of things happen in St Andrews. As the parish, I ain't things on the radio, right? What if someone just pick up a phone and say, all right, Blair, we have something in Grenville, you wanted to be on. The ladies what happened? I remember Ricky Abidin to me the other day. He saw some girls practice in Parish Park. Why is he position that? What did he discover? Is a St Andrews team, St Andrews women's team practicing, The women's event officer comes to Progress Park on a regular basis and the sessions. But they didn't have the courtesy, right, of saying to the parish, look A, B, and C. I don't be involved. I said them to executive meetings. Just inform. And I think it's a respect, that people coming to constituency and the parish without informing parish. And you don't only what happening in Andrews, but it happening in other parishes. But the bottom of that, people saying that you're nothing. I remember the Bishop of St. George, Nigeria. Somebody saying to me that St. George's only have teams in the Premier right now, and that's the result of it. That is bullshit nonsense, right? In the recent St. Andrews have had more teams taking part in Premier League, etc., right? So what's happening under my stewardship, and I'll outline to you on what causing it to lag. The cohesiveness of the St. Andrews football team, the St. Andrews football team, with villages in the parish actually play in a tournament every year. And I said to you all the percent of the under school of Baden, so that itself is they actually have people most of them in the Jake Reedy who all came through that process. Look at them fellas came through that process. And say so we are structured, In sometime to I must admit that is St. Andrews most time we like the barrel, like you always put on another. As soon as you realize you will something, someone come and say, well, let's see how much you blame. How much you blame, you go back with your point. And that the kind of thing you have. And it doesn't necessarily be let us say somebody else. We have, to make sure that, we're always pulling back, What I say, there must be a thing. I think I still hoping that the resources will come to St. Andrews, not in my time, as we go down the,
With all that you just highlighted, Mr. Blair, it appears that all is not well within the ranks of the Grenada Football Association.
I don't know. I don't know if I can say all is not well. I think what happens most times is a lot of information leave the office, and the co-members are not aware of anything in the media. To put it this way, a lot of that happens with the executive members being aware. We know the problems. If one of these people have to go to court, or people have to go to jail, go in jail. Not the workers in the office, It's the executive members. What So I just say that in line. Yes, they are actually being employed to do the work. I just admit that the commissions officer, for instance, do an excellent job, right? But the question is communication, right? At most time, teams to get communication because they get communication, then there's a bottleneck, and there's a problem. To say whether all is well, I leave it to judge. I leave it to judge to find whether all is well.
You tend to be very short on that on that answer.
All is well. I leave to say what all is well.
Yeah, but I ask that in light of the mutiny. Don't let me use mutiny. That's more for military jargons and things like that. So, but the issues, if probably I want to be a little more diplomatic, regarding the 5 members of the Grenada Football Association some time ago, and you were part of that five, the gang of five, as
Yeah,
they
that's
said.
correct. And I had no regrets.
And you still have no regrets about that.
Because we did nothing wrong. We did nothing wrong. What actually happened? I think something happened that what we did was within the statutes, right? So we didn't do anything wrong. We worked within the statutes. The statutes say that you could move to suspend somebody. It's council had to remove, right? And the thing was thrown out of proportion, etc., 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 etc. Right? I mean, it is fair that some of us are still suffering as a result of that. You know. So I know you raised the question whether everything is well. You know, but again, I say I leave it to judge, right? I leave the public to judge.
So do you think that St. Andrew and your representation of the parish is being affected because of your stance you took some recently?
Well, it is said so. I mean, he said that SFL suffered as a result of that. It is said, but I mean, we are getting what we have to get. I mean, I must say that, I mean, if there is funds available and St. Andrews SFL get what they have to get. You know, the clubs in St. Parish, the clubs in the parish get what they have to get. So I cannot say from that standpoint is affected. But I think what I probably is information. Sometimes people don't get information, and I'm not saying, and sometimes it's not deliberate, you know. I don't know, sometimes it's deliberate, but it's just a question exactly how they operate, right? You know. So, like I say, whether everything is well or not, I'll leave it to judgment. Yeah, media man.
Well, it's good to know that some of the kakada is flowing to the parish of St. Andrew.
Yeah,
Let's go back.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the issue of this parish sports council, because you made reference to your involvement in the St. Andrews Sports Council, some time back, and we know that of recent the national sports policy was aiming to revive the whole issue of sports council. St. John's, for example, is still operating the St. John's Sports Council. Would you like to see that the St. Andrew Sports Council is revived, and likewise in other parishes?
Well, this is the way to go. And I tell you something too. You remember I mentioned to you that early on, that in the years of the 79, 83, there was sports council set up around parishes. And John Sports Council is one of the surviving councils for that time. They had continued to be active from 79 to now. So when you're trying to set up sports council within the period 2008, thereabout, they was always active, so they never ceased to function. You know, and I think they respond about certain things in parishes, etc., etc. I mean, and the thing, for instance, let me give you one thing, for instance. I know, for instance, lights in Victoria Park. I view all the lights in Victoria Park. There should be a committee in the parish responsible for the lights. So that you go pay you pay your fees in the revenue office, right? And within the committee, you could take it from there. But you see, to use the lights, you gotta get permission from the ministry. I think the lights in the park was put for the people in St. Andrews, right? So the ministry, yes, must have the representation and the committee. But the people in St. Andrews must have some responsibility, I mean, for the lights. They could see it and pass locally. And that has nothing to do with attacking the ministry. I just feel that figure should be right. I don't know that if when you want to use lights in Grenville, you ought to write to A, B, and C. There should be a system where the ministry, the sports council, etc., etc. That is just my position, because St. Andrews Football League use a lot of lights in the park, but we pay for it, right? Anytime you have lights in the park, we pay for it. People are saying that we using lights and paying, for instance. I could just clarify that. No, you may go to play a game in the park, right? And for one reason or another, the game may come off, right? So a man may be passing now at 8 o'clock, and you see lights on. When you put on the coins last for a period of time. So if the game was supposed to go on 6 o'clock, and the game didn't come off, the lights have been programmed from 6 to 8. So within that time, the lights in the park don't happen. And people complain and say, well, blame my lights and nothing happening. But it's because of the structure. It's not like in the stadium, you just go and click the lights. you put in your money, and then at the end of the day, when the coins finish, the lights go. So people might be seeing lights in the pan and seeing that blind and wishing lights. But lights were paid, bro. I just started of clearing that. Yeah. But you were talking about we were talking about the parish council. You know, yes, I think it's it's something I would like to see. You know, I think first of all, the major sporting disciplines in the parish, like the netball, the football, cricket, basketball, volleyball, it probably could have been the Nicholas to be part of that. In addition to that, you look at people in the parish who's interested in sports, you bring them in and have a body, an umbrella body. One of the problems that sometimes too is that when you have people playing sports and being administrators at the time, is a problem. Because you don't have time to really sometimes when you're supposed to be doing something, then you're on the football field, etc., etc. So I'm saying is that the parish could have that formed a system where we could attempt to revise the thing. But however, in the new sports policy, as I understand it, I suppose sooner or later that itself will come out, and is a means of moving forward with it when it comes. I don't know if I have any interest in serving and attending the sports council presently, but at the same time, I will help to encourage that as an sports council come downstream and function. You know, whenever the time is come, I'll give you whatsoever support I can do, just to make sure he comes downstream. You know,
I agree with that. Seeing as we have the minister tune into our program, I will probably urge the minister also to try to meet with outside of the normal meetings that they will have, try meeting with the various organizations within the various parishes, and probably starting at home, meaning St Andrews, hear from those folks at the community level, not just the national associations, whether it's football or athletics or such, but hear what's happening at the community level. And I think the minister...
That's going to mention that. Mm-hmm. I know, for instance, that there is a big four that our committee have been set up, and they talk about moving sports in the parish. You know, St Andrews Football League was never involved in it. They never met somebody, and at the same point they were making a run. We are living on people who could make a contribution. And I think that's what the problem is. And most of them people them coming dead weight. And I know politics say that. The bulk of them is dead, right? And just politics, like I said, when it comes to that, I know politics, right? I say what first and Jews. I agree with that, right? But you see, at some time they figure, well, on that side and one side, we can bring them in. But we ain't go forward, sir. We must rethink, right? For we to go, we have to go. But unless we continue that thing, doesn't happen. And I've been disappointed. I saw there was a bunch of the St. Jews parish whatsoever. But I'm compliment for what they are done. Let's improve that. It is good in any end. But on top of that, I didn't know that, because I would have thought that, for instance, assistance will have given to the various leagues, whether it's football, etc., etc. But I didn't know from I, and I also say too, as the oldest organization in St Andrews Sports, SAFL, we were not even asked to be part of the committee, right? But everybody was elected for Luke Kearney, but they didn't choose to select us. Yeah. But we continue to do what we do for football in the parish. I remember some guy told me last time that the big foot, they take over football in St Andrews, right? They were on the football. I said, just talking that. I said, as long as I am around, St Andrews football will be what they have to do, right? We are no disrespect the authorities, but we will run competition. And they're not saying that nobody else can run competition. We will do what we have to do. So until we have a system where we look in a broader picture, because I mean this thing to stabilize government whatsoever. If others are there, I'm not part of that. I clear from that. My thing is a parish, all the things for. But I must compliment the big group for coming together, and I hope that that in the future that we get a lot of, much productivity. Because I know one thing, people didn't say nothing happening, So I look forward to see something happening. I know it's COVID. It's a crucial thing, yes. So one need to understand that. But moving forward, we have to make efforts to get. I know it's a problem with financial problem, etc. With the Twister sport as I do, I got to work with her. For the part of my life, the years I was in Carnival Committee, she was working alongside me and gave me her support. And I always tried to give her support. I could give her wrong sports. And even from a footballing standpoint, and we are hoping to do that soon. And the Minister of Sports right now, but prior to that, because as far as we know, the headquarters of the National Football League is in our constituency. That's the Victoria Park. So that we are ready and they're willing to meet you when the time comes. So they say that we must look at everything in a different light of how we really want to move this thing. And that's exactly how we're gonna move the country forward. Right? When a man could help do something, when he come out and do it, but sometimes people tend to figure, I bring in a man who can do the thing. And at the end of the day, and the people who have been doing the thing voluntarily over the years, you find a man coming, is dollars they want, etc., etc. So I look forward that what is wrong could be put correct, and so we could move forward as a unit in the parish.
What's about the Parish Stars?
Big Parish Stars is up and running. As a matter of fact, we are playing tonight. We came very close to winning the tournament in 2019 and 2018.
Hold on, by way of clarification, that's a newly formed team or club or whatever it is. I heard the name Big Parish Stars.
Yeah, all right.
Give us some more information on Big Parish.
All right. It's a competition organized by the Grenada Football Association, but currently being run by Wagiti in any event. Incidentally, the competition started tonight. Now, each parish have a team. For instance, there is St. John's Dolphins. I think there is St. George's Gunners. In other words, to play for the team, play for the parish, you must reside in the parish, right? But even though you're from St. George's and you're living in St. Andrews, you could play for St. Andrews, vice versa, right? But you must be residing in the parish. For instance, the players who play for Hard Rock, they all play. They doesn't play in the. Hard Rock is a team outside of St. Andrews, right? But if you play for Hard Rock, you have to play for St. Andrews. So right now we have Hard Rock players in St. Andrews team and players from outside. But once you live in St. Andrews, you play for St. Andrews. Each parish have a team, and one of the conditions for play in the tournament, it must be residing in the parish. Like I said, the first year, that's the third year. The first year it was run by the GFA. Within the last year it was given to Wagiti to sublet it to Wagiti. So he been running it for, and I understand there's a 5-year contract for it to run the tournament for the next 5 years. But in essence, that it's the parish, it's a team from all the parishes playing. What I could tell you though is that because of the COVID situation, it had whilst last year and the year before, the first prize was $30,000 and the second prize was $20,000. The third prize been $10,000. This year, the price has been slashed. For instance, the first prize will be $20,000, the second prize 10, and the third prize 5. And I know that people have concerns, but I think for the good of the game, people are going ahead and play football because sometimes money is not all. But the teams are actually playing, but they know they're playing very well for less money. And that had to do with the COVID situation. You would only have limited, and as such, that responsibility. So there's a drop in the number. For instance, the match fee, and I just for instance, the GFA Wagiti whatsoever would have given 2005 over the years, but he said 2000. So what's that player go looking for a match fee at at $100 this year, you can't get $100. You'll get less than that. As a matter of fact, I remember it was made quite clear at the end of the day, the match fee doesn't necessarily mean that you can have to pay the players with it. You could have done otherwise, but we in St Andrews have been paying the match fee to players, and will continue to do this year. Whether they get more or less, in any event, it's less we get into. I don't think they'll get more. But the match fee we made available to them, whatsoever is given to us. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, so I don't know if that answered the whole concept at the big parish, because it's a competition where you see all the parishes together. Carrifutu itself is part of the tournament. So it's an inter-parish competition.
So it's just that St Andrews is represented by big parish stars. That's what it is, right?
Represented by big parish stars. And I could also tell you that we have a management committee. Probably that is why we're doing so good. We have come close to winning last year, but we threw it away at the end of the day. There's a management committee.
And led by Peter Blair.
You almost have. But let me just say that we have a management committee, and in that management committee, we got young people. We got Peter Bain, who is a director. We got a guy, Junior Alexis, and there is Ricky Aberdeen, and the manager of the St Andrews team, which is Basil Richards, and he's one of the main pillar of Sab football team in the village of Sab. He's also a director, the five-man managing team that manages St Andrews football team. I was however disappointed though that we was told by the organizing committee that two of our people would not be able to get entry into the stadium because they cannot make a competition to bring 5 people inside. And I mean, to that, I mean, I'm very disappointed because those are people doing voluntary work. Although they did say that if it increases, if they're allowed to bring in more people in the stadium, they could be considered. Because not only that, once you have a 25-man squad, whilst in past years the 25 men could have gone down, but 7 go up in the pavilion and the other 18 go down on the ground. This right now you cannot go down. You cannot go down with the 25. You have to go with 18, right? And the staff only 5 members of the staff. You are able to member your staff, but we have a 7-man staff, right? Well, we understand that in any event, but I was kind of concerned that even the managing team, it might be slightly, that's my opinion.
You mean, and you're referring to the stadium?
No, the management committee.
Yeah, but I'm asking, the venue is the stadium, the national stadium.
Yeah, the venue is the stadium. Well, is it right? One hand, the stadium is the only place we're going to play right now. It's under COVID regulations. Like the Avaras have been saying to me that he's hoping that by the next game, probably they might lift some of the restrictions, and then we are able to bring more people in the stadiums. Hopefully there, and then things will go back to normal, and we probably get more people to get in there.
All right. Okay. Just to let our viewers know that on Thursday, our guest on the program will be the former Grenada and West Indies leg spinning all-rounder Camillus Alexander. Camillus actually plays for the United States now. He lives, he works in Atlanta, Georgia. In fact, he's one of the coaches of an academy in Atlanta, Georgia. In fact, he's actually playing as we speak in a game in Atlanta, and he will be on our program on Thursday. That's Camillus Alexander, the former Grenada and West Indies leg spinning all-rounder who is now playing cricket for the United States. He'll be on our program on Thursday, 6:30 p.m. Back to you, Mr. Blair. It has to do with the issue of sponsorship. Very key indeed. How much is the challenge of sponsorship for sports in the parish of St Andrews? And we're looking at what it will be like for attracting sponsorship, meaningful sponsorship for sports, especially for the St Andrews Football League in post-pandemic. Given all the challenges we are going through, as you just outlined with the Wariti tournament itself, where the prices are slashed, how do you expect for your organization or your committee to attract sponsorship in a post-pandemic era for sports in the parish of St Andrews?
Well, up until now, we still considering whether or not we'll have any tournament this year, and that is one of the consideration to the question of sponsorship. Because even in normal times, we are not being able to attract sponsors, because the bottom line is that the business community in St Andrews doesn't sponsor, and the bulk of the business community there is the Indian business tools, and them contribute towards sports, you know. Over the years, we've been able to, I think from a St Andrews League standpoint, we've been able to attract. I remember at one time we had Cablevision, which gone out of existence, and the sponsorship we got within recent years had to come from St George's. The Grenville Credit Union with us at one year thereabout. I think we still have to continue negotiating with them, because they also always show some interest to come on board. 1 year we had the question of the communal credit union from St George's, and they only sponsored 1 year. And although they gave us the full impression that they were prepared to sponsor up to a certain amount, at the end of the day, that didn't happen. So there's always been challenges. However, we've been running the commission every year without sponsor, with no major sponsors, you know. We juggle here and there. I mean, we use registration money to pay prizes. For instance, when you get money from the GFE for the St Andrews team, you use it to assist with prizes, vice versa, because the St Andrews team, SAFL is money for the St Andrews team. So there's a management committee for the St Andrews team. So the money comes directly to the league, you know. So you will use league money to finance the team. So when you get team money, sometimes you have to use that now to offset your costs, you know, to offset some of the finance problems you have. But in a sense, we've been coping with it. In the past, you would have probably gone to somebody and they'll say, right, they will give you X, but these days, sponsorship comes to the question now that when they get X, you must get Y. For instance, when you look at breweries, for instance, if they're sponsoring, they'll tell you, look, that they must sell drinks, etc., etc. So they won't just pick up, let's say, 5,000 and say, but if you could, you'll have to work to get out of that money. But I must compliment people like the late C.K. Sylvester, when he had Red Stripe, and Red Stripe sponsored St Andrews Football League for a number of years. So for that we are very grateful. I mean, he still rest in peace. He was one of the people, who was behind SFL in the good and bad times. But within the past years, we have not been having sponsors. And so that is why now we are moving forward to make sure that we have an executive, bring people on board, so that we could move from where we are to our next point, bringing more people on board. But the new people, we can only hope that that they will actually work, right? But sponsorship has always been a challenge, and we've been surviving all the sponsorship.
Mr. Blair, after 44 years of service to sports and culture in Grenada, are you still inspired to continue in sports administration?
Well, it all depends what the future holds. For instance, nobody would have known there would have been COVID, right? So I will say, when the time comes, I make a decision, right? But as far as the St Andrews Football League, I'm prepared to continue the St Andrews Football League. They're not too worried about that. When it comes to the GF, that's a fish for different nature. SAFL, once I have health and strength, I still hoping I can continue. Once I'm getting the assistance from the young group, I have around me, right? So yes, the question is, how long I will go in, I don't know, but I think right now I have energy, and I prepare to exploit the energy in football present.
Recently, I had Mr. Naka Joseph on the program, who authored a book on sports in St. John's. Um, do you think that St. Andrews has that rich legacy, this rich history that can be documented to the extent of how Mr. Joseph was able to document not all, but as much as possible, the sporting exploits of the parish of St. John's? Do you think it's something that can be done for the parish of St. Andrews?
I think it could be done because I mean there are a lot of I mean a lot of things that need to be documented up in St. Andrews, right? Because I talk to you, and some people are hearing something for the first time, but I mean, what's all the days of people like Ross Rapier? Ross Rapier, who played for Grenada, he was one of the better footballers in the country. But I didn't say that Ross Rapier was the president of the St. Louis Football League when it was reorganized in 1999. But when he traveled as vice president, he took over the presidency. And he's one who still have interest in St. Andrews Football League. He always assists in one way or the other. So I'm saying there are a lot of things that could be documented.
Well, just take a pin there on Eros Rapier because we need to add. You mentioned the name, but you forgot something very important. In fact, he was the first Grenadian to win a medal at the Carifta Games, representing Grenada in javelin.
I remember that.
Right.
That was only broken a few years ago.
Right. So it's need to be added.
I mean, he always, again, he always concerned about what happened in the league. I mean, whosoever in New York, at least he'll come look for me. We'll talk about how we can help, and then comes the thing, So yes, there are a lot of stuff out there that could be put into. I mean, like I mentioned, the likes of Kingston Forrester, the likes of Leonard Andrew, the likes of Evelyn Frederick, the likes of Franklin Frederick, who played football and Grenada, both cricket and football for Grenada. The likes of the Thomas brothers, Wesley Bataille Thomas, etc. So there's a lot of stuff there that probably need to be documented because the younger people doesn't know. Yeah, other people doesn't know exactly who was Kingston Forrester. They doesn't know, for instance, who was Evelyn Frederick. Them younger people. But I mean, those things need to be documented. And I'm only talking a few. If you go back to the question of people like Blash, Joe Blash, not in my time, but he did quite a lot for St. Andrews football in the past. The likes of Norris Bale, who at one time I'd say, I mean, was a godfather of the St. Andrews Football League. He was the one who never said no to us or anything for something in the event. I remember when we organized the St. Andrews team to play the GFA, he made sure that he supplied us with the uniforms, right? So I mean, there are a lot of things that people who contributed. The Leslie Ramdani, I mean, who assisted us in one way or the other, So I just saying that I mean,
Rudy Walker.
Yes, he too should. Although he was not, he did quite a lot to football, and were able to turn around the football. I remember at one time that everybody left SAFL and went with Rudy. Even himself offered he wanted me to come across. I said to him, "What you really want?" I said to him, "My thing about football." So when he left, we continue running SAFL with the skeleton people we had. But he should be complimented because I think he too helped to change the dynamics of football in the country. I mean, where people was able to go out and play outside, you get some match fee, etc., etc. But he too have been complimented. As a matter of fact, I must say, when he came into the football, he came around St. Andrews Football League, right? But his thing at the time is that he wanted to control the league, right? And I said to him, "Look, we gotta get a team for yourself." So he did gonna build a team for himself, by taking from exactly what we had. But in those days, because he was able to use sponsors money, etc., because a big businessman, nearly everybody left and go with him because I mean we couldn't pay people, and he was paying people, But I mean he too should be complimented, right? And again, he too should you're doing a documentary on St. Andrews, he should be included. The likes of a number of people. I mean,
want you to continue. I want you to continue naming names, but I don't want to get into problems like I did last week when Triggs was attempting to call names and we forgot a name like Yvette Sinak in terms of female as an administrator. So I also want you to think about the females as well, because
I agree with that, and it just dawned on me. The people who was calling more or less was exactly was I said with football and probably cricket. But Yvette Sinak, I mean, I work along with Yvette Sinak over the years. When, for instance, Yolan Bain, they were members of the Queen Show Committee. And so I'd work with Yolan, I would work with both Yvette Sinak. Yvette Sinak, too, was very vital in the St Andrews Eastern Games. She was a pertinent person there. I mean, she's a member of the committee. And there are now people there, the Smith sisters, Jacqueline and Christine, etc., etc. But again, I don't want to go calling names, because you rightly say. I mean, they will say, we better call me name and everything. So probably you just raise that day. But I think there's enough material in St Andrews that you could do, I mean, a proper book. So I suppose if somebody comes around, they could do something to document what happened in St Andrews.
I really hope.
I just talking to you from off my head,
Yeah, because I really hope it can be done during the lifetime of a lot of folks who are still alive, because a lot of information can be shared, can be disseminated about the exploits of people in St Andrews. I saw Cleve actually put up Malachi Johnson and his dad, who was a referee of high caliber. I don't know if he's referring to the big parish, but I know also that St Andrews also had a number of officials in terms of referees, in terms of football, umpires, in terms of cricket, and have been involved in a lot, mainly football, cricket, and track and field. I think were the mainstay of St Andrew when it comes to sports and national representation.
Well, that is correct. You had the likes of Rani Alad, who has made a contribution. He made a wrong cricket. So a number of years on the cricket comes through. Like I say, I don't want to go wrong with naming names because I go about some and people say, well, I call in A and I call in B. Well, I just the question. I just say that there is enough. You can get enough information, so somebody could do a document. The whole thing. And so the names are called is people who could be resourceful. Because once I give you something on football, there are people who could still get something like cricket. Vice versa. I mean, Patrick Simmons, too, he has played a vital role in the whole development of sport in St Andrews. I mean, he involved with national team, etc., basketball. I remember when the executive was revised, SAFL, he was a member of the executive in 1979. When he was revised, only recently reminding that he was a member of that executive. Presently, I'm the only surviving member of that executive. Well, I mean, when I say surviving, I think all the members of that committee, I mean, it's still alive in an event, but some of them are traveled.
Instead of active membership.
Yeah. I'm the only active one right now.
Well, it will take quite a lot to do what is such a project because what we're doing here is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of bringing awareness, but in terms of the actual documenting, it's a project that will involve, lots of resources, money and personnel and what have you, to do what we have to do, and not just St Andrews, but Grenada as a whole, because as we said, just like St John's, St Andrews would have already would have also made its contribution to the development of sports in towards Grenada. But I'm glad you mentioned the name Ross Rapier, because it was a name that has been lost when we talk track and field so many times. In fact, I recall when Grenada was hosting the Carifta Games in 2015, 2016. That's the second time they were hosting it. There was a quiz, a sports quiz, and it was actually to do with Eros Rapier. And it was surprising that so many people did not know about Eros Rapier and what he has accomplished, what he has achieved, and when the name was actually mentioned and said, well, where he actually from? It was like, I didn't even know that. Even people from the parish of St Andrew were not even aware that Eros Rapier himself was the first Grenadian to win a medal at the Carifta Games, in fact, in the javelin event. And, we outlined some of the other achievements of Eros Rapier. And there's so many other big parishes and the accomplishments of people from the big parish that we seem not to recognize. And speaking about that, Peter Blair, I think it was suggested that probably, as last week, it was suggested sort of in the interim, a Hall of Fame for the men and women, sportsmen, sportswomen, and administrators of St Andrew to be recognized some way or the other. It's a national effort will take quite a lot, but in the interim, as the leading sports administrator for the parish of St Andrew, what do you think about something in recognizing the past?
Very, 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 very good idea. I think it's something we could look at with the active sports administrators presently, in particular those who are probably at the end of the career in sports administration, could probably piloting that along with some young people to push it forward. Because people, for instance, only recognize probably when they pass from this planet. But I must say I didn't even know that presently the holder of British Empire Medal, which I got from Queen Elizabeth in 2009. So that my name was Peter Blair BM. That's the credential behind my name, and he had to do with the contribution I've made to development in St Andrews. And I ain't saying football because it had been holistic. Like I said, it was scouting, it was athletics, it was being president of the St Andrews Youth Development Committee in the early days, been involved in the Carnival Committee, etc., etc. So for that itself, I was actually honored for that. Where I got a British Empire Medal, So
you said,
I think it's something which we could look at in an event,
You said Peter Blair, BEM? Is it BEM?
BEM, yeah. I'm the holder of a British Empire Medal.
Okay, British Empire Medal. I'll remember that next time that I'll give you the official title of Peter Blair.
As a matter of fact, that's the credential bear my name. I normally use it, but that's the credential bear my name. Peter Blair BEM. I remember I have a very good friend at one time when they addressed him. He used to say to them, "Well, my name is BM," and he want to insist. But I don't worry about that, I doesn't actually worry about whether or not, So in a sense, that is situation from that standpoint.
Yeah, but I do want to support and encourage some sort of recognition of the achievements of personnel from the parish of St Andrew, and something that can incentivize the young ones. As you said, it's not always about money, but some people look at it that way. But something that can at least recognize the contributions of the folks of the big parish, and also that can inspire the young ones to be involved, not just as sportsmen and sportswomen, but also as administrators. And I hope it's something that you can probably toot with your organization, as well as the minister who is now from St Andrews. Well, it seems as if St Andrews over the years have been represented at the level of Ministry of Sports, because there was once Minister Emlyn Pierre, then we had Patrick Simmons. Now we have
Roland Bola at one time was there.
Roland Bola going back to then, and then at one time we could have said Spaceman, because he was between St Patrick and St Andrews.
Yeah, he always passed through St Andrews and
he's at the borderline.
And he too have been very supportive towards SAFL and St Andrews. He too, Spaceman had been very, very supportive. Well, I don't want to sing. I don't want to sing Lord Ministers, but some of them were more supportive than others. Emlyn, for instance.
And I'm just we'll come back to Emlyn. We'll come back to Emlyn in a moment, but let's stay with Spaceman for that, because I wanted to say that you mentioned about Rudy Walker and his how he has able to revolutionize football as probably the quote unquote first it would have been the first semi-professional, if I may call it. First
that's correct.
semi-professional. Minister at the time, Adrian Spaceman Mitchell, also was involved to an extent in terms of supporting football, as I know, in terms of their training and all these sort of things, and he was one who also assisted in development of football and sports in general, not just at the parish level, but the national level as well.
Well, I mean, he must give me kudos for that. I mean, because when you become the minister of sports, you are the minister of sports for the country, not just your parish. And I mean, whilst I expect the current minister of sports get a fair share, but at the same time, I expect because your country is responsible for us, So I don't be a bitch and say, well, it's this time now. I tend to figure it to be accountable, but we should exactly what we have to get, for instance, But
going on to the former Minister of Sports, Emlyn Pierre, as you said, she also were very supportive of the sports in the Parish and St Andrews Football League as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was single out because when she was Minister of Sports, she did all of its ensure that whatever we want to get it. I mean, I must compliment her. That I'm saying the ministers didn't do, but she's another one I could have singled out. The little while she was in sport with us, Everything was we got everything. She was supportive. You didn't get everything we want, but if you have a problem and you call, she will assist you one way or the other. Them. So but I guess we now have Mrs. Joseph, Mrs. Yolan being Hosford, who I guess now probably could fill the shoe, of where the last minister left out,
Okay. So while we get ready to wrap up, I want to get from you your candid view of sports at the parish level. And we stick with St Andrews in particular because you tend to represent most of the interests of St Andrews, especially at the football level. But what's your candid view in terms of the development of sports and the way forward for sports in the parish, developing the sports in the parish? And I'm speaking here not just of football, but overall development of sports in the parish of St Andrew.
Well, I think one of the way going forward is
I think we having a little
we can make an attempt actually.
Mr. Blair,
I don't know exactly how soon the sports the
I think we had a little problem with the audio at the start. So if you can just start over in terms of what you believe could be the way forward. I think we just had a little problem with the audio.
All right. So I mentioned one of the way forward is the question of the revitalization of St Andrews Parish Sports Council. Two, I think we need more people to get involved in administration. Because you see, one of the problem we have is that the players are administrators themselves, right? So there is manager, there is coach, there is captain. So for you to really get anything moving, you have to move up on a more professional level. And in addition to that is the whole development of developing the youth aspect of football, the cricket, etc., etc. We must concentrate on youth right now so that we'll have a steady flow of people. What you look at, for instance, football. For instance, right now I know right now there are 10 players from St Andrews and the national team, and all of them are actually playing for Big Parish Stars. But in addition, most of them are young people. So that there is this enhancement of exactly how your administrators. So you need to open up to jail to push the thing forward. So I say you have to be the jailing of more people coming on board, And the question, we need to, administrators should be administrators, and then players should be administrators. I think that is one of the way, I think, we could get it moving forward. You know, there are many other ways, but I just think that is, you have to be a united approach. There could be challenges, but I think we could do it in any way. You know.
Okay.
So,
yeah. So, well, I would say glad having you, Mr. Blair. I want to wish you all the best in terms of your future endeavors regarding sports. I don't know if there's anything else on your notes that you wanted to say that you didn't get to cover. I know you were a bit, you tried to be a bit diplomatic when it comes to the GFA and the whole issue regarding the Gang of Five, but as you said candidly that you do not regret the stance you took back then. By the way, is there still a court matter pending regarding that?
Not that I know. Not that I know. The matter was withdrawn from the court. I mean, not that I know.
Okay. So Peter
I know
Blair,
last sometime ago I saw a document where we were supposed to be taken before the DC. I mean, that I don't think I know, but not about no.
Okay.
Would have been allowed to function function in the FA, but we have gone back to council and executive meeting.
So as far as you're concerned, Peter Blair is in the clear.
As
regards the Gang of Five and the action that the Gang of Five took.
Well, I don't know. I mean, this thing is about footballing, and this thing of exactly of what I'm on conscience is clear about. Like I say, I had no regrets for what I did, right? Because I did nothing wrong. If I'd done something wrong, then I'd have regrets. I did nothing wrong. We didn't break the statutes. We didn't break the statutes, you know. And it's just unfortunate that we reached where we had reached. And I think that probably if we had tread cautiously up front, we would not have reached there. You know, but I say we did nothing wrong. You know.
You by the way, you had the support of your constituents regarding the action that was taken, right? You had the support of your constituents.
As regards of reinstating us?
Well, not just reinstating, because before reinstating, there was quote unquote suspension. And because of the action taken, you were suspended. So I'm asking if all along you had the support of your constituents from the start to the end.
Well, it's a situation, and it goes back to the whole question of factions, you know, because when it was reinstated, I mean, I think it was 11-11. But again, you had to get 2/3. She was even Stevens. So even at that situation, there was need for us to really settle down and move forward, you know. Mm-hmm. But we're moving slowly, you know. You know, yeah. So I just saying, yes, we had the support, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, that's good. That's good to know. And as you indicated in the start, and as we indicated in the start, is what was perceived. And I think, Mr. Nigel Gibbs, I don't think you understand what is being discussed here. With all due respect to you, as we said, that it was what was referred to at the time as being the gang, not being very distasteful. Please, I have to put you into your place, please. Okay. Sometimes you have to.
Probably I shouldn't. I mean, I know you mentioned the Gang of Five. You know.
No, but that is what we are saying. We are saying at the time.
Said at the time. It said the time was the Gang of Five.
That is what was said.
I don't know that we
simple.
Probably gives it. Yeah.
No, but that was established in the start when
at the time the Gang of Five.
The Gang of Five. They were referred to
at the famous Five.
In fact, there were different names.
At the famous Five.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that is not my opinion.
Apart from the Gang of Five, there is the famous Five.
Right. That's what I was saying. As I said, if he joined the program late, it's his problem. We established at first that is what it was referred to at the time as the Gang of Five. And as you indicated to the famous Five, you know. But going forward, Mr. Blair, and thanks for your service, as I said. And I hope those who are trotting along will be able to understand the amount of sacrifice you have given to sports and culture in Grenada over the years. And it's not just 5 years or 10 years. You said in excess of 40 years, in fact, 44 and counting, that you will be, you would have inspired others, especially in the big parish, that when you decide to, pack up and move on, that there will be those who are willing to come forward. And as we indicated, we have to stop staying on the sidelines and say, give others a chance. You have to be involved. You have to get involved. And the only way you can get involved is by being part of the process. And by way you, as you indicated, and as I said, the folks like Sir Walter St. John, even the Roy St. John and others, as they were indicating, they got involved at a very early age in terms of participating. Now we know of all the distractions and other challenges that are being faced with, that it's sort of difficult to get young people involved. But I'm hoping, Mr. Blair, that you will be able to mentor some of those young folks in becoming involved at the administrative level, because it's important that we get administrators at a very young age involved so that they can move up the ladder, because as we see, most of our sports administrators at the national level, they are of age, as we'll say. And I'm certain that to some extent they are willing to, move aside. But, the only how they'll move aside.
Because just the point you make, you see, the young people when they come in, is exactly how much you're paying, right? In our time, there's not just how much you're paying. It's a question of we working for the good of the country and the good of the parish.
Well, it's a
young man coming out.
It's a new dispensation now, and the argument would be that at the time when you were involved and others were involved, there was not the issue of the money and all of that involved. Now that, especially when they're hearing so much things about money, and as you indicated that sometimes what's being bantered around about the money being involved and this and that and the other, sometimes they believe that they need to get piece of the kakada, as you say.
Piece of the pie.
Piece of the kakada.
I mean, just in wrong enough, for instance, we have situation, for instance, we have a set, we only send on this competition. We may have referees slated to referee, but the GFA and the last minute might call a man and say, looking by referee. Now he'll just abandon our game and go on to the GFA game because you get more money there, right? So you see, the question is commitment. I mean, because for the $1 of the dollar, he'll go there and because he getting more money there in an event, and then leave our commission now suffering. So you see, the whole question of people being disciplined, etc., etc. So we had to look at the way how we deal with things. I mean, if you give a commitment, you give a commitment. You just can't halfway to decide, well, GFA called me in 99 minutes, so I'm going to referee GFA. And we're an affiliate of the GFA. St Andrews Football League is an affiliate of the GFA. And I could also say too that we are the only organized league in the country. All of those who running football is individuals, but we are the only organized league. We hold elections, we have bank accounts, we give financial report, etc., etc. Some other people in the bill, they ain't give no financial report, they ain't hold elections, etc., etc. But we in line, we take part in competitions, etc., etc.
Well, it's good to know that, and I'm hoping that those who are listening will get a different perspective of the St Andrews Football League and sports to an extent in the parish, Mr. Blair. But just before we go, I started that issue with well, it started before, but it continued with Mr. Simmons last week, and I just want you to spend just about a minute or two on it. The whole issue of the reorganizing and the whole club structure of sports in Grenada. I don't know if that's an issue for you in the parish of St Andrew in terms of club structure, but what's your opinion on the whole issue of proper club structures? I know it's something that the GFA, for example, was trying to get mainstream in terms of funding for clubs rather than teams. I know in terms of the St Andrews Football League, it's sort of different because as it speaks to football, okay? But the whole issue of club structure, getting the teams that you now have as affiliates of the St Andrews Football League, probably, to be properly organized into proper club structure?
That is something we're working towards too. That is something the GFA have been advocating. And I say, unless we decide to separate administrators from players, we go continue at the problem. Administrators should be administrators, and then players should be players. When you have players being administrators, you have a big problem, because, like I said earlier on, the man is the coach, he's the manager, he's the captain, he's the sponsor, right? And so much so institution.
He still attends council meetings.
He still attends council meeting, and at sometimes when he should be coming to a council meeting, he has a game so he can come. So the thing about it, the things should be decentralized. If he's a coach, he's a coach. If he's an administrator, the administrator has the administrative part. And I think unless we go in that direction, we go continue having problems. You need to bring more people, and players should be players, coaches should be coaches, and administrators should be administrators. That is just my honest view. Until we go into that, we go continue to have problems. But actually, what we really have in Grenada today, the bulk of them thing is teams, right? Because most of them doesn't even hold elections in any event. He just one man, and he do this and he do that and he do that. So, having said so, I figure that's the way forward.
Okay, then
we must look at the structure and how we organize from our club level.
Right. Well, glad to hear that from you. And once again, viewers, just to let you know that coming up on Thursday, we'll be speaking with Mr. Camillus Alexander, the former Grenada and West Indies leg spinning all-rounder. He's now playing for the United States in terms of cricket. He's based in Atlanta, Georgia, and he will be on our program on Thursday at 6:30 p.m. And next Saturday, hopefully, God's willing, Mr. Cecil Greenwich, we hope to contact Mr. Cecil Greenwich to be on our program. Well, not hope to contact him. We hope to be in contact with him. To be on our program for the Saturday Sports Special. Mr. Cecil Greenwich was the former sports coordinator for a number of years. And I think, Mr. Blair, you would have worked with Mr. Greenwich as a sports coordinator.
Actually, I was delighted to work with Mr. Greenwich way back in the days of in '79, when at that time he was the coordinator of sports. I worked with him. Very pleasant person to work with, and recently had a stint as president of the Greater Cricket Association, and I remember working with him. So he had been, and he too has made his contribution, and he too is one who supported me. Along the line when he was in the ministry, you call and he say, boy, you could help, but you have to hold on, and but he always support you. And the thing he never tell you no, Smaller never tell you no, But he never tell you no. But sometimes he always live in high hopes,
Yeah, I laugh because I know that
that was in it.
He loved the boy,
Yeah.
So he will be on our program. We have a list of administrators who have decided to speak to us, as we said, and I agree with Toro's suggestion earlier that it basically will take quite a lot if we need to document those things. This is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of just getting folks to say something now, but in terms of documenting, getting the personnel involved, the resources involved, having to sit down with someone and listen to them for hours and then trying to put together, things. And in some cases, they have documents, that they can show you that, like I recall Raymond Anthony, the lawyer Raymond Anthony, some years ago, I was in Grenada, and he brought me in his office and showed me documents when he competed for Grenada. At the time, it was the British West Indian Games, not even the Commonwealth Games. He represented Grenada and won medals, and these are things that I don't think the average Grenadian is aware, but he has documents to show where he participated representing Grenada in high jump and other events, and a lot of rich history of Grenadians And it's nothing short of what we have been discussing in terms of St Andrews. I'm glad you mentioned the Thomas's brothers, for example, who would have excelled in both football and cricket. Bataille and Denison Thomas, they played both football and cricket national level, both for Grenada and Windward Islands, to be precise. And it was a number of folks from the big parish who would have represented Grenada at the national level as well. You probably would have been, in your time, you would have experienced a number of those who would have passed through the ranks of wearing national colors. Not just the Thomas brothers, as you said. Some of them would have, of course, would have traveled, but fresh in their minds would have been the Thomas's brother, as you indicated.
There's actually Franklin Frederick who played for. I think he played for Combined Islands, but he played both football and cricket for Grenada. And recently he was in Grenada, and what he said to me is that all his friends probably that traveled, etc., etc. So I think he has gone back to New York, but he wants to come back and live here. But when he comes there, he want to get involved back in sports. He always say that once he come back, he'll want to get involved in sports.
Okay. Okay then. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Blair. I wish you all the best. Thanks very much for your, as I said, for your service to Grenada and to representation for the parish of St Andrews. And I look forward to your continued representation as a director at the Grenada Football Association. Let's and I know we had a little a little joke over that in terms of smiling about the gang of five, But let's
the famous five.
The famous. That's what I'm saying. The famous five. What was the gang is now the famous five, and as you said,
the famous five.
Yeah, you have not. There's nothing you have regretted, and at least you would have. If you had to do it over again, you would do it because you stood for principle.
Exactly. One doesn't break the Constitution.
Okay. Just before we go,
Toro, good afternoon, man.
Yeah.
Lincoln, okay.
Not so much discipline. We and the people before us slave for free, bring mass, play pan, and organize competitions with no reward. Nothing is wrong with the youth them today saying they want a little more money for the effort. But Toro, that could be debatable. But I know things have turned a little professional these days. But in this Google times, sometimes it's hard to get the kakada flow into the young ones. Roger Duncan says, Mr. Cecil Greenwich, a man I have a lot of respect for. Next week's program with him should be interesting indeed. He's not just a man of a lot of respect, a man with a lot of words too. And I know he, in conversing with him a week or two ago, he was able to give me a lot of information. In fact, he reminded me that during his time, one of the first sports officers he had at the time would have been the late Carlos Busy Thomas, we would have forgotten Carlos Thomas, who would have given quite a lot to sports in Grenada. And of course, Mr. Blair, you would have worked with Mr. Thomas, Carlos, in those days, back in the 80s, Well,
I did it, like I said, I worked from 79 with everybody around. I worked with all the guys from 79 writing.
Yeah. Well, the name Peter Blair, as I said, is synonymous with sports because when I got involved, I heard the name Peter Blair, and I recall I was told that two persons you need to get contact with in St Andrews at the time would have been Peter Blair, and there was also Claudius George, and then Ronnie Allard came on later on. Ronnie Allard, both football and cricket to an extent, but was Claudius George and Peter Blair were the two names that you had to get in touch with. If you don't, then you're missing out quite a lot. Peter, when next you see your fellow trucker, Mr. Bear Williams, give him my regards, according to Toro. Yeah, well, of course, Bear Williams. Bear Williams is
he too was involved in football, running the Tantin League.
Has been a staple in sports in the St. George's area, especially Tan team. And Toro, it brings back the point you have been trying to make there, Toro. I mean, when you talk about Bear Williams. Do you think Bear Williams got paid? I don't think so. Like Peter Blair, he didn't get paid, you know. So the Peter Blair and the Bear Williams and others didn't get paid. They did that for the love. And even through the you know, name calling and all these sort of things. And going back to Nigel Gibbs, you know, you have to take it a bit easy, you know, because Peter Blair, as he said, the name calling thing is nothing new to him. He has gone through quite a lot. Even his kids would have been humiliated at school for name calling. So this is nothing new to these guys, but they did it because of the love of sport, you know. So thank you very much, Mr. Blair, and I hope to see you sometime soon, probably when you pass through New York again. I know it has been a few months now. We haven't seen each other.
Yeah, you know? well, actually, because of COVID, because normally I spend at least I spend summer in New York nearly every year. But for the past few years, I've been up there for Labor Day, but summer. But in the situation, we are living in the new normal, you know. So,
right.
So it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure. I mean, with you again. Like I said, what I've done it. Not for myself, but for my parish and the country.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much for having me on the program.
Yeah, I thank you very much, Mr. Peter Blair, and I wish you and your family all the best. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay then. So that was Mr. Peter Blair, the veteran sports administrator from the big parish of St Andrews, and you know, I just want to wrap up because you know, I got some comments there from Toro. That's why the young fellas have to collect from Mr. Beer. And he also said, remember the organizing efforts of a fella like German, certainly. German McKee. He, you know, I don't want to start because it will be, you know, never ending. There are so many of these folks who would have given off their services to sports at the community level, not just the national level, at the community level, and they haven't received a dime, you know. And I think through our program, we'll be hoping to recognize the efforts of some of them, you know, even though we cannot give something tangible, but I think just the recognition, the, you know, discussing and sharing their experiences, I think that will go a long way in inspiring some of the young ones and basically, you know, recognizing the efforts of these people over the years. And I want to thank you, Toro and Claire, for all the support you have been given the program, and especially in some of the names that you have been able to put up there for us. I want to thank you. So once again, thank you very much, folks. And as I said, on Thursday, our guest will be Camillus Alexander, the former Grenada and West Indies leg spinning all-rounder. He will be on our program on Thursday from 6:30 p.m. And on Saturday, next Saturday, we'll have Mr. Cecil Greenwich, the former coordinator of sports in the Ministry of Sports in Grenada. He will be on our program. All the best. Take care.